Hey everyone, and welcome to this episode of Engineer Your Career. My name is Jess. I'm the sales lead here at Showcode, and I'm joined today by this lovely Sam Larsen-Disney, who I'll hand over to very shortly, as he's going to be teaching you how to build a side hustle out of your engineering skills, which, very excited to hear what you got to say. Just a few sort of things before we kick off. For those of you that are new here, welcome. Nice to have you. And just wanted to give a bit of a brief intro about who Showcode is if you're not familiar with us, you probably haven't heard, and it also will give Sam a chance to reconnect to the call. So Showcode is a community platform for coders. We do many things such as hackathons, coding competitions, workshops, technical workshops, panel discussions, and lots of other great, amazing things to bring the tech community together. Our two sort of core communities are Athena, which is for women and non-binaries in tech. And then we also have Varsity Code, which is perfect for students who are looking to get into tech. So if you are relevant to either of those communities, please feel free to join them. To create a Showcode profile, you can do so via showcode.io. Create your profile on there. You can put in your tech stack, your projects. So if you've got your GitHub and so on, you can connect that all up, and you can start having some really good fun competing in various sort of coding competitions and hackathons, like I said earlier, and also join any relevant communities. We have also recently started onboarding university communities to the platform. So if you are a student at a university and you're thinking, our society could benefit from this, do get in touch with us. We'll be more than happy to help and see if we can get you sorted. I am now just going to fill some empty space because Sam apparently appears to have connection problems right now, but hopefully he will be getting back online very, very shortly. So just to cover off then, because I was going to go through this at the end of the call, but I will just cover it off now. So this year, we are now all set in terms of our events that we're going to be doing. And even though the tech market does seem a little bit iffy at the moment, I know there's been a lot of like bad news going around about tech layoffs and so on, but actually speaking with a lot of employers, that's not the majority of companies. Yes, there's been some hardship on some companies, but majority are still sort of going full steam ahead, which is great for those who are looking to make a move this year. So we're going to be running two events. So Athena Hack, which is going to be in July, so July 1st. We haven't launched registration yet, but please do, as I said already, join the community, and you'll be able to get all of the notifications about when registrations go live. So that hack is specific for our women and non-binary community, just to reiterate. So we will be doing another event at the end of the year, which I'll mention very shortly, which will be more for the wider community. But yeah, Athena Hack, July 1st. If you want to come, sign up to the community right now, and then in a few months' time, we will be launching registrations for the tickets about 2 months before we normally do it. Likewise, if any of your companies that you work for, you think would be up for getting involved with it, sponsoring the hack, without the sponsors, we can't run these events. So if you are part of a company that would be willing to get involved, I'd be more than happy to have them. And then welcome back, Sam. Don't worry, I'm just talking, so it's all good. Then later this year, Showcode Live, we're going to be launching. So we actually haven't gone out to market yet. So this is a brand new event that we're launching this week. Showcode Live is going to be bringing the whole tech community together from across the UK. So it's going to be a festival type event with different employer partner meetups, fire chats, technical workshops, coding battles, and so on. So it's not going to be a hackathon like our normal events, but there will be obviously lots of other things you can get involved in. So that is going to be commencing the week of the 25th of September. So get that date in your diaries. The big event weekend will be that Saturday, and we'll have lots of our employer partners, all of our sort of coding boot camps that we work with as well, and the other communities that we work with, and have some fun. So I will now actually hand over to Sam now that you're back.
Yeah, sorry about that.
Oh, it's all right, no worries. It wouldn't be a technical sort of glitch. Well, it wouldn't be a technical chat if there wasn't any glitches with the system. But hopefully you'll be all good. I will now go mute myself and hide myself. Just a note for those who have attended, FYI, we will be monitoring the chat. I will be monitoring it on behalf of Sam, and we will try and get your questions answered as we go, as long as it doesn't disrupt the flow too much. Otherwise, we'll come back to them at the end. There we go. So thank you, Sam. I'll now hand over to you, and yeah, looking forward to hearing what you have to say.
All right, great stuff. First thing, can you see my screen?
Yes, we can. So you're all good.
All right, great. Okay, so for those of you I haven't met, my name is Sam Larsen-Disney, and I currently work as a software engineer at Amplitude, which is an analytics company. In this talk, I'm going to tell you the story of how I tripled my salary in 3 years, and then how I went on to match it in earnings outside of work. This is my personal experience, and it should be noted that what I'm going to talk about here won't necessarily be applicable to everybody, but hopefully it can work as a starting point and get you inspired to do a bit more. So I'm going to do this by telling 3 stories. The first one is about finding what I love, the second one about blending it with my day job, and the third is about sharing that with the world. And I always like to start with this picture. This is the moment I got addicted to hackathons. The look of bewilderment on my face as I was handed an Xbox. The reaction would have been even bigger had I known where the tangent I was about to make in my career would take me. And I want to take this all the way back to 2017. I was in my 3rd year of university at the time, and I was studying artificial intelligence. And I actually wasn't enjoying it. It was quite mathsy and boring. And my best mate, Jonathan, saw my boredom and suggested that we should participate in a hackathon. Now, my university ran a hackathon called Hack Kings. And together, Johnny and Jordan, who's pictured there, we entered. And so we stayed up all night building an app called Beat Street. And what Beat Street does is it takes your current location and attempts to play music related to where you are. This is the only picture on the right I have of the app. But hopefully you can see there that we've spoofed the location to show that we're in Astley Avenue, and you can see my delight as it plays Never Gonna Give You Up by Rick Astley, thinking that we're at that location. So we use Spotify APIs to do this on location technology, which I had not tried before, but then we did something stupid. So having stayed up all night, we were shattered, understandably. And so once we pitched the app to the judges, we hadn't finished all the features we'd planned out, and we were quite tired, and we didn't think that it was worthy of anything. So we decided to leave. Big mistake. 1 hour later, our phones are blowing up. Every member of the hackathon organizing committee was trying to get hold of us. They wanted us to present in the final. And this is when I learned my first big lesson about hackathons. The idea is the hack. Regardless of the state of your code, as long as you can convey your idea through it, your hack is good enough. All the extra bells and whistles, styling, animations, graphic can all go. Fast forward a couple of months on a trip to Brighton, we were still kicking ourselves. Johnny turns to me and says, I think we should have another go. And it just so happened that the largest student-run hackathon, IC Hack, which happens at Imperial College, was happening 2 weeks later. And Johnny and I managed to get tickets and vowed that this time we were going to stay until the end, regardless of what happened. Now, I don't know if you're familiar, but there is a large amount of rivalry between the London universities. This time we wouldn't be competing on home turf, and this was immediately noticeable when we showed up to the hackathon and we tried to find 2 teammates. It was like that moment when you're the last person to be picked for a sports team. No one wanted us, partially due to our lack of skill and partially because of our university choice. We ended up forming a team with the only 2 who were left. However, this ended up being great for us, as one of the 2 had front-end experience where Johnny and I did not. Lesson number 2 for me was a hackathon team has its best chances of success when comprised of a whole host of different roles and skill levels. How your team is constructed can drastically change your team's ability and the kind of projects that you can tackle. People often forget this when thrown into a room with strangers and they all huddle with their folks who all have the same skill set. With a fair amount of determination, the team stayed up all night again, and it turned out that we finished the back end early. And I was asked by one of our newfound teammates to help with the front end. And this was my first ever exposure to the world of front end development. I was immediately hooked, but incredibly inexperienced. So I was asking for help left, right, and center. And by some miracle, I was getting help with front end at 2 a.m. And I'm so grateful for that experience, because I don't know where I would be today if I hadn't got that help. The brief for this particular hack was to use Microsoft's APIs in an interesting way. We settled on image recognition, which was kind of brand spanking new at the time. It's not really anymore. We built a small project called Spidentify. Many teams were using image recognition, but we did something that we thought was a little bit different. We created multiple image recognition layers and fed one into another. And the video, which hopefully will load. So this yellow UI is a terrible example of how Spidentify works, but you give it an image and it tries to identify the type of spider, snake, or rat in the image. And if it was going to kill you, it would then direct you to the nearest hospital. The idea is you use this in the rainforest. Once you've been bitten by it, you take a picture of it and it would do the rest. And this brings me on to the third point, which is to fake it till you make it. It's common for people to turn up to a hack with an app idea without working out if it actually fits the brief. They try and bend it to match the brief. And if you're in it to win it, you should always wait until you have the brief in your hands to generate your ideas. But also, you don't have to build your ideas in full. Spidentify is an app that classifies a photo, but there's a really big flaw in it. It doesn't matter what you give it a picture of, it will always identify it as a snake, spider, or rat. So in our demo, we actually gave it a picture of Donald Trump, and the app identified him as a snake, which was hilarious, room burst into laughter. But also humor is a really good tool to use to kind of break the ice with your audience. So that worked really well and in our favor. We ended up taking first place in this hack, and I left with more than just an Xbox. I'd made some new mates, but I'd also found a new passion for front-end development. And I immediately contacted my graduate scheme coordinator and said, I want to do front-end in my role. And as my studies came to a close, I thought too, so had my hackathon journey. How wrong I was. So the second part of this is how I blended hackathons with my day job. And so I started my career as a graduate at American Express. I'd done an internship there before, and they offered a rotational scheme. If you're looking for a job and you can get one with rotations, they're awesome because you can try out different areas of the business without having to commit yourself to a particular role, and you can find out what works best for you. And so I did 2 rotations. I did one in user experience design, where I was designing different parts of the American Express app. This scene here is like almost like CSI. That's one-way mirrored glass with a customer on the other side playing with our app. You can see the app on the left screen there, and then there's the designers on the other side trying to see if our customers react to the app in the way that we would expect them to. Really, really interesting, and really grateful for having spent 6 months doing design work, even though I had no intention of being a designer. I learned so much that I take forward with me every day in my engineering work. And the second thing I did was I worked in R&D, research and development. And here I built different mechanisms for referring a friend, or how we might refer friends in the future. So I made color changing credit cards. I made it so that you could, the Centurion on the American Express card you see there was actually a referral link. You could scan it using a camera and it would refer a mate using your credit card. We made chatbots, all sorts of crazy projects. And the way they would work is we would get tasked with building a solution to a problem. We'd have 2 weeks to do it, and then we would pitch it, and either it would go and get built for real, or it would get thrown away. And that's almost quite like a hackathon in the way that we worked in these very small iteration cycles to try and get to a working minimal viable product. So I really, really enjoyed that and kind of got that same rush that I did with hackathons through this work as well. And interestingly enough, American Express actually sponsored IC Hack in the year that I was was working as a graduate there. And so I was able to go back the following year as a mentor and sponsor and help the next generation understand what it takes to win a hackathon. And this gave me an idea, because whenever you go to a hackathon or events of a similar nature, you'll often see that the sponsors try and push jobs, graduate schemes onto the attendees because that's how they see value. But I always thought that it was better to try and focus on why the attendees are really there. So I created a talk at the time called Elevate Your Hack. And instead of talking about American Express and our graduate schemes, I focused purely on how people could make the most of the hackathon, how they could win. And what was interesting is our talk led to the most people coming to talk to us afterwards. And actually, we managed to double the amount of applications to American Express off the back of this this little tiny shift, which worked really well. Also, side note, that's where I met Will from Showcode, and that is why I'm here today as well. So I'm really glad that I went back and had that opportunity there. American Express saw that the numbers went up, and as a result, they sent me up and down the country and even to Amsterdam to promote American Express at hackathons, which was great because I got to do a lot more of the mentoring and sponsoring that I loved. And then COVID happened. And COVID was a really interesting time for a lot of tech companies. American Express was no exception because they were trying to cut cost. Because obviously with COVID, less people were spending on holidays on their credit cards, and as a result, our revenue stream was lower. So one thing that every tech company does when they start losing money is they get rid of their research and development team first, because they don't need to innovate, they just need to maintain. And so my job, I didn't get fired, but my role did shift very quickly into something that I didn't enjoy. I went from doing front-end R&D work to doing back-end work. And that was quite difficult for me to enjoy. That being said, I wasn't commuting to work anymore, so I suddenly had a lot more time. And so what I decided to do was have a bit of a lockdown hackathon with one attendee, me. And hopefully this will come through in the video. I'll share out the deck afterwards if it isn't. But you can see there on the right, I have some presentation decks, and I'm going to open one of those right now. And on the left, you'll see there's my webcam, and below that, there is a representation of my skeleton. And I was watching a TEDx talk and watching someone gesture, but it didn't actually do anything, right? It was a wasted energy. So what I decided to do was make it so that if you gesture left or you gesture right, it would make the slides go forward or backward, therefore using that energy for something good. And it's kind of like a weird, wacky project, but it was awfully fun. And it was a good way to remind myself that when there's nothing in my way, I can have some fun. And I'm also a powerful developer, you know? And, you know, that's something interesting about those little projects and hackathons, is that I find myself kind of running away from the large scale software projects and trying to build something fast and fun to really affirm to myself and give myself the confidence that I know what I'm doing and I'm capable, when there isn't company politics involved and that kind of thing. And so my job got very boring for a bit. I was doing back-end work, not very happy. And so I decided to start thinking about a move. And I think, especially when you're in your first job, you don't really know what other places are like to work at, and it can be quite nerve-wracking to make that first jump. But one thing I really wanted to point out was that the maximum pay rise I have ever seen anyone get from an internal promotion is about 15%. But what I did was I did 2 subsequent stints, one at a very small startup. And by doing that jump to another company, I increased my salary by 42%. And then after those 7 months, I jumped again to a design agency called Zone, and I increased it by a further 25%. There is no way I would have got that amount through internal promotions at American Express during that same time frame. At the very least, when you're thinking about your job, you want to make sure that you're at least matching inflation, or you are effectively losing money by staying at the same salary. So just something to keep in mind as you think about going into the world of work if you're not there already. And so I'd spent a lot of time building my personal website during lockdown. I had a lot of free time, so I thought, what else can I build? And one site that came up pretty often was devpost.com. DevPost is one of the major sites for hackathons. Showcode as well has them. There's another one called Hacker Earth that's worth a look. And Yanis, who's a mate of mine, and myself, we came across one that was actually being hosted by Showcode on DevPost at the time, called Level Up Society Hackathon. And in this hackathon, the idea was to improve society through gamification. And so what Yanis and I did was we built an education tool to help with answering multiple choice questions, because we didn't like them. It was a pain point that we'd experienced ourselves. And so we decided to make a game where you choose a map, you log in, you invite your mates, and then you end up on a board like this, and purple nodes start to appear. And when you click on a purple node, it asks you to answer a question. And then if you get it right, it paints that part of the map in your color. And the aim is to try and have the most of your color across the board at the end of the game as possible. And you can see the percentages up in the top right. And that was a really fun project. And it was also the first time that I'd worked on something like a game at all. And Showcode very kindly awarded us first place, and I won £5,000. And that was the first time I'd ever seen money come out of a hackathon win. And for me, that was a very big shift, because I suddenly saw this as potentially a way to earn some money as well as a way to build great projects. But it also taught me one other very valuable lesson. In that hackathon project, we kept it very related to us. We had a problem that we'd experienced that we were trying to solve. I always think that the best hackathon projects are the ones that are related to you. So keep that in mind if you're planning on trying this kind of thing, because your passion really does come through that way. And so once we'd done that and we'd won £5,000, we thought, well, why don't we try again? And so there was another hackathon a few months later with a company called Esri, who do maps. Mapping is their big thing. And so they wanted to create solutions to help solve climate change using maps. And whenever you think about maps, you think you need a map, and it's got to be related to geography or countries or whatever. And again, that's not really related to what I do. So what Yanis and I tried to do this time was instead create something a little bit unique. And so what you do is you type in a website address. And what we do is we use a map to tell the story of that, your connection to that web page and what it means for the environment by you visiting it. Because if I tell you that a web page, you burn 5 grams of carbon when you visit X web page X number of times, it means nothing to you. But if I suddenly show you that you could drive this far with your car from your current location using that same amount of carbon, suddenly it starts to make it easier to understand in human terms. So we kind of use the map as a storytelling device. And that was another way that we got noticed in this hackathon. So again, keeping it related to you is absolutely the #1 golden rule. And we won that. And part of us winning that was not just some money, but we also got to go to Palm Springs in California and go and pitch at the developer conference. And you can see there's a huge auditorium on the top right. And that was a really amazing experience that I mean, not just the sunbathing you can see there, but also talking to a room full of developers. I was so nervous, but I learned how to create a better pitch. And actually, a lot of this hackathon stuff and having to pitch your project for 3 minutes, even if it's just on YouTube, really does help with that public speaking thing. And you really start to get more confident with it. And I'm so grateful for opportunities like that where I've been able to learn so much. And I wanted to touch on one more because I love talking about these hackathon projects. And so I went to a hackathon called Hack the Press in February of last year. And the idea was about trying to make journalism and news sites more accessible to younger people, because apparently we're reading less news or we're consuming it from the wrong kinds of places. And so OpenAI was the hot thing. It still is the hot thing, but they didn't have ChatGPT then, but they did have text summarization. And so we decided to use that and combine it with a little thing called Remotion, which takes React code, front-end code, and turns it into video. And what we did was we gave it an article and it would turn it into a video for someone to consume on the likes of TikTok or Instagram. And I have a little that was made using this. So this video is automatically generated. And it's summarized the text from the article and taken the images out of the article as well and combined them into a montagey video. That was kind of the idea. And that was just a 2-day hackathon. And we didn't win that one, but I still got to play with some awesome technology and I'm so grateful for it. Remotion's a really cool piece of tech and you should try it in the front end space. And winning isn't the only way to win, because this story does have one great ending to it. You see, I worked really hard at this hackathon. That's me there 2 hours before everybody else. And I was the last one to leave too. And this got me noticed by this guy, Joe. And Joe is now my boss. You see, Joe saw how hard I was working and offered me the job at Amplitude. And that increased my salary again by 33%. So these are big jumps you can see. So please, please, please jump companies occasionally. Don't stay at the same company your whole career. You'll be much better off for it. And I still do hackathons. Even now, I think they're so fun. So I recently went to Portugal, to Lisbon, and I pitched a project, and that was great fun. And you really can travel. DevPost has international hackathons all over the world. You should go and have a look, because they are great ways to meet new engineers from all over the place and really just test those skills. But I would say that this is the absolute opposite of passive income. These are exhausting, especially if you're doing a lot, even two at once sometimes. You will find yourself drained, and it's important that you make sure that you've got free time that is dedicated to you resting and having R&R. One of my New Year's resolutions this year is, once I've done a hackathon, I actually have to take the next day off, just so that I can kind of recharge my batteries, because trying to work the next day can be really difficult sometimes for me. But my daily rate of earnings from hackathon attendance is currently sitting just under £1,000, which is absolutely mind-boggling. So there definitely is a trade-off there, and just trying to balance that is kind of one of my main goals at the moment. But if you do a lot of these events, you start to develop a formula, and I've got a formula that I use. And you'll also be exposed to plenty of technology you won't see normally, which is great for your CV. And you'll build a ton of projects for a portfolio. If you're a student, there is no faster way to get a project that you can demo to someone. Absolutely not. Like a 2-day hackathon and you've got a project. You can't do that on your own. So I really do encourage students to get involved as much as they possibly can. And if you're going to create a whole lot of projects, it's important to share it with the world. And one great way to do this is with a personal website. I have spent a lot of time on my personal website myself. And my journey into my personal website started with this Chrome extension called Wappalizer, which, if you're interested in software engineering at all, definitely go and download it. It's free. What it does is it will tell you the technologies that are used on any web page. So you just click it in the top corner and it will tell you whether that page is using Google Analytics. Is it using React? Is it using Node? What is it using? It will tell you all of that information. And one thing that was very common at the time when I was building my personal website was a tool called Gatsby. I would not recommend you use Gatsby today if you're going to go and build your personal website. There are far better tools out there at the moment, but Gatsby was what was cool and hot at the time. And so what I decided to do was to build my personal website in Gatsby. And so my personal website started looking like this, and then it got a bit better and a bit better as time has gone by. And I've been iterating and iterating on it throughout my whole career, pretty much. And one thing I've been trying to do since day one is learn in public. So throughout the whole process of me building my website, I would be posting on LinkedIn and Twitter about what I've built, how it's working, how many lines of code it is, how many views have I got, this kind of stuff, and trying to talk through the code that does the interesting things like article reactions on the blogs or the stats page. I basically tried to document my whole process. And when I first started that, I did it in Medium because I didn't have any way to do it on my personal website. But then slowly my personal website got to a point where I had a blog on it, and then I started doing it on the blog and sharing it directly. And that, I really basically became a Gatsby fanboy because I was talking about all of that technology and how I was using it in my personal website. And I went from 0 to 100,000 views in less than 9 months. And that was pretty much all driven by LinkedIn, which was madness. So I was really, really happy with that. I was seeing some great progress. And it's also super validating to see your site being visited by people that you know, get some positive encouragement. And then something weird happened. So I got approached on LinkedIn by a publisher because they said, hey, we're working on a new book on Gatsby.js, and it seems like you know a lot about it because I was posting all the time. And they wondered if it was something that I would want to work on. And so they asked me if I wanted to write a book on Gatsby, and I said, 100% yes, because I love the idea of sounding like I'm a published author, but also it was something I'd never done before. It was like something totally foreign, and I thought that it would be a great experience for me to try. And a good book can represent a great source of passive income. There's a lot of upfront effort you've got to do, but once it's done, the money will just keep rolling in. Assuming it's a good book, and we'll get onto that in a second. And so I started, and I was writing like crazy. I was finding it really fun, but after that first month, it became very difficult. I would be staring at a blank page and not knowing what to write, and also it was so time consuming. So I was getting up at 6 a.m. to write book before work, and then as soon as I'd be spending another couple of hours writing book, and everything suffered. My relationship suffered, my work got worse, my sleep was reduced, and my overall happiness went down drastically. And it went on for 10 months like this while I wrote it. And it was a horrible experience. However, I did finally finish it. And you can see this was actually on the day I got my copy through the post. My eyes show you how tired I was, still coming off the back of that. So hopefully I look a little bit better now. This was in the distant past now. And you can see there I posted it on Reddit, and I posted it in the web dev subreddit, which I found out could be very brutal, because this was on the first day I had my published book, and I got a lot of upvotes, but the comments weren't positive. A lot of people suggesting I used the wrong technology and that I should have used something else, and someone even suggesting that they were going to pirate it and give it away, which was very hard to hear. And so I kind of vowed that I would never write a book again in that moment. And I thought that would be it. But unfortunately, saner heads prevailed, because 1 week later, I was working on my personal website a little bit more. I was moving some old content I'd written. So a long time ago, when I was attending these hackathons as a mentor, I created an article called Sam's Hackathon Survival Guide. And this was kind of like my top tips and tricks for what to do at hackathons to come across the best. And as I was kind of migrating this across, I was also obviously adding a lot more to it, because that was years ago, and I've learned a lot more from my own personal hackathon experiences in the meantime. And so I started writing, and it got longer and longer, book level long. And it came to a certain point where I was like, wow, this is either like a series of blog posts, or I kind of flesh it out properly and I give it the time it deserves and I turn it into a book. And this time I did a little bit differently. I didn't approach a publisher. I instead decided that I would self-publish it. And I looked on Amazon to see if there was anything like it. And there are lots of hackathon books on organizing hackathons. They don't look hugely visually appealing, but there's none on kind of being an attendee. So it's something I love, and I thought I'd have a lot more enjoyment writing it. I teamed up with a friend, Emma, who's a full-time illustrator and graphic novelist, and together we built the Hackathon Survival Guide, which is possibly the thing I'm most proud of in my life to date. And because I was more enthusiastic about the book, and I was throwing it out there, and I think my passion was coming through again, much like it did in my hackathon projects, it was getting picked up all over the place. There's universities in the US that now use it as part of their syllabus. There's all sorts of different student hackathons reaching out all the time for sponsorship and stuff. It's been really eye-opening and great, and it's actually opened more mentoring and speaking opportunities for myself too. So I've been super happy about that. And so I thought I would kind of just start to wrap things up with where I am now. So I've attended over 50 hackathons. I think it's getting very close to 60 by now. I haven't done a count recently. I've won £75,000 in the last year and a bit, which is madness. And I'm covering my energy bill and council tax with book earnings. So that's also super nice, especially with the rising cost of living at the moment. So if you want to get started in this space, I have just a couple of tips. The first one is go and start doing hackathons or challenges of a similar nature. Shoko's platform, I was looking today, they have some with some great prize pools. There's nothing stopping you from going, and don't expect from the beginning to win, but you might slowly start to see that you develop a formula yourself and start to see the rewards and benefits of that come your way. And then share your learnings in public as much as possible. there is no harm in doing it, and actually you might help someone else on their journey too. So I really think it's definitely worth doing. And that's it, really. I'm now happy to take any questions across any of this. Also, if you fancy picking up the Hackathon Survival Guide, you can use the code on the screen, 20% off. And I also have a newsletter that I haven't been writing recently, but I'm going to start picking it up again. So if you fancy joining my newsletter and finding out about this weird hackathon world a bit more, then please sign up, but totally up to you. Yeah, good stuff.
Thanks, Sam. That was awesome. Like, obviously we loved your book at Athena. You know how popular it is, and we will not ever stop you plugging it because it is a really good resource that helps so many people. So best software engineering career roadmap ever. Well, Sam, definitely sign up to Show Code, everyone. The community is amazing. Oh, thanks, Faith. Faith is one of our Athena ambassadors for those that haven't met Faith previously. So thank you. But yeah, as Sam said, there's lots of competitions on the Showco platform, most of which offer prizes. So anything from £20 voucher all the way up to where Sam said he won obviously £5,000 a few years ago through one of our hacks, which was a level up hack. We've not actually done it since. Maybe we should bring it back. That's an idea. I'll have to run that past Will, maybe. Actually, maybe not. Let's see. That's our CEO for anyone who's wondering who's Will. Just seeing a few questions. So Trina, hi Sam, thanks for the amazing talk. What tools would you recommend over Gatsby these days, and where do you get inspiration for your personal website?
Yeah, so Gatsby's doing interesting things. I don't want to be negative about a company, but I've personally had some negative experiences with Gatsby and the people who work there. So I also have a bit of a personal reason why I don't want to use Gatsby, but I honestly believe Next.js is the thing that's a little bit more versatile. You can still do all the stuff that Gatsby does, but you have a lot more flexibility, and it's a great tool for personal websites, but also it's great for hackathons because you can build a lot very fast. So Next.js has something called serverless functions in it too. So you can actually almost get away without having to build a lot of back-end code at all in order to get a back-end as well as a front end in a project, and you can kind of fake it till you make it. So yeah, Next.js is where I would spend my time. They've just recently released Next.js 13, which is still in beta. It's definitely worth a look if you're front-end focused because they're changing the game. Yeah, and then inspiration for the personal website. So hopefully you saw it's been a bit of an iterative process. I went through many different jobs where I learned about design systems, and that kind of all fed into my site. But for me personally, like, I think there's like 20-ish software developers out there whose sites really blew my mind. If you go on my personal website, which I will write a link to right now, and you navigate to the bottom, in the footer it says about this site, and on it I basically call out every developer who has helped me or inspired me to build the website the way it's being done. So those would be the developers that I would suggest you go and have a look at in their personal websites for inspiration, because they are knockout.
Oh, great. Thank you for that. Just having a look. Icebreaker activity. Yes, yeah. We definitely have to do that again, Sam. You have no choice. I'll have to drag you out.
Yeah, that's all right. It's fine. Yeah.
I think if we don't do that again, there'll be a wall path and everyone just walk out of the hackathon. Those who are not at Athena Hack, just so you feel included, Sam ran a really awesome treasure hunt around sort of central London, which we didn't have a clue how engaged people could be with it. But I think pretty much the whole building went. Like, everyone that ever came to the hack went and took part in the treasure hunt. So no, thanks for organising that.
Yeah, retroactively, I would rather have liked like an assistant or something, because it was quite demanding.
Oh, I'm happy to help. You know me, I'm always floating about. So amongst everything
next time.
So I'm just marking a few of these as questions, but I'm not really keeping on top of it. So we had another one from Trina. So did you use a separate plugin for your blog Markdown docs?
Yeah, in Gatsby I did. Now I've gone to a bit of a more custom solution. I can probably demo that actually. Let me see if I turn this back on. Hopefully you can see my screen again.
Yeah, all good.
So on my blog now, I have weird flow diagrammy things and stuff like that. I have over-engineered this. You do not need to go to this extreme. But I have some weird markdown stuff that happens on my blog now. One other thing that I take a lot of pride in is presentations normally. This one was a bit of an exception because I was a bit rushed on time, but normally I do them in my presentation software, which is interactive, and this is all marked down too. So I kind of have weird edge casey markdown things that happen now. So I'm kind of building custom solutions to the same problem. But yeah, I plugins normally work well, so I would definitely opt for those instead of building it over yourself. At the moment, I've got another one privately, which is what tips do you have for negotiating your salary and what helped you increase it?
Yeah.
So it's all actually come with confidence for me. So when I first started my career, I never negotiated salary. I've only recently got to the level where I feel comfortable negotiating salary myself because I feel more confident in my abilities. I have never, ever asked for more money and they pull out the offer they'd already offered me. Right. So at the very worst, you're going to end up with their first offer if you like the company. Right. So I try, pretty much my standard now is to ask for 10% more than they have put on paper and see how it goes for me. And I've had weird stuff happen, like they've offered me shares instead of salary. And it's always important to do the math and work out what that means post-tax and stuff like that to work out whether it's really, really worth it. So I don't know, 10% is my golden rule. And one thing that I've started to do even more is when I get approached, especially on LinkedIn by a recruiter, I won't get involved in the hiring process until I know what the salary range is. And that can be a really good negotiating tool because you kind of know in what range they can work. But that's, again, if it's your first job, it's kind of, you kind of feel a little bit weird doing it. I totally get it. I think once you've got your foot in the door, it becomes easier. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, no, it's a good point. It's one that comes up a lot, I think. Salary, it's always a tricky one. Like you always feel a little bit intimidated asking. I remember the first time I ever tried to negotiate a salary and I just felt like I was saying everything other than give me more money. But it is definitely a conversation that needs to be had. And you have to just think with your business head as well. It's very easy to get emotionally involved because obviously it does affect us emotionally. But if you can try as best as possible to separate the two and just think you're trying to better yourself, your life and whatever it may be, and know your value, do your research and so on beforehand, whether that be speaking with a recruiter, like an agency recruiter, they'll be very aware. I know agency recruiters do get a bad reputation sometimes, but actually a good one does know the market very well and will know if you're maybe either peaking a bit too high or you're severely like going under where you should be. So definitely do that, or to speak with people around you and just see what they're doing. We've covered a bit of this on some of the other sessions as well, reaching out to those already working in the business and just finding out a bit more that side. There's nothing wrong with that either. LinkedIn is a great tool. There's many things you can find out just by using it. So just got one from Sarah.
Just building on that, just before you jump on, the talking to recruiters is really good, even if you're not interested in the job that they have at the moment. Quite often I've had it where they've reached out to me in 6 months and go, hey, I listened to you and I recognize that role wasn't good for you, but I have one that actually is. And I have gone down that route and taken jobs as a result. So I really recommend maintaining those connections as well.
Definitely. It's a huge thing to that we preach. Finding a good recruiter is like a good, like once you found a good one, keep hold of them. It doesn't matter if it's 3 years, 5 years or whatever, they're still in recruitment, which the good ones will be. And then, yeah, they have loads of knowledge that isn't always accessible online. And always be a little bit wary of Glassdoor. That will be something I will say. Glassdoor can be a bit warped. I don't think, not a lot of stuff gets verified anymore. So it gives you a kind of view, but I wouldn't take it as gospel, just as an FYI. Question from Sarah. Considering that I'm learning coding by myself as my bachelor has nothing to do with it, what kind of experience is needed to be confident enough to participate in hackathon events? I'm going to give a very brief answer, and Sam will give his answer. I could compete in a hackathon, and I work in sales. So that is how little confidence you need in coding in order to take part. But Sam, you can then give a much better answer.
Yeah. So you're absolutely right, Jess. You're absolutely good. You'd probably smash it, right? But what I would say is, it comes back to one of my first points, which is hackathons aren't about coding. The title is very misleading. It's about ideas. If you can convey your idea well, you have a very good chance. Sometimes implementation is a factor, but then, okay, great. You join a team with engineers who will be able to teach you, and you'll learn in a really short space of time, probably a lot more than you would have learned from a textbook or online. And, putting that kind of stuff into practice is so crucial. So, sorry, in answer to your question, just go. And don't go and feel nervous, because there are still 1,000 different roles. I actually did a hackathon at the end of last year with my sister, because she wanted a share of the winnings, and she works in marketing, and she helped so much with the design of how it looked. She did a whole load of user testing with customers, and she did she was doing the presentation. She did a whole load of public speaking. Even if you don't write a line of code, there is still so much you can do. And one thing I haven't talked about today that I do talk about a lot is about the timing of hackathons and how much time you should spend doing different things. And at an absolute maximum, I'd say the coding should take up 60% of the time, the total team time, right? Which means that there is 40% of stuff that isn't code that I believe you could do. Buy my book for more info on that.
And we've got so Sarah, our hack on the 1st of July. If you are near London, we'd love to obviously welcome you there. If you're not near London, you can take part virtually, and we can do some team sort of speed dating. If you haven't got anyone to come along with, I'm more than happy to get that organised for you. As I said, just join the Athena community on Showcode, and all of the information will be on there, and along with lots of other great sessions that you can join in between now and July, because I appreciate it's a few months away still.
Faith's also made some great points in the chat as well, on like all the stuff you can do. So for sure, get involved.
Oh, thanks, Faith. Oh yeah, they were just seeing it. I can fly. Oh yeah, there's so much you can do. I think it's been great to see so many people come along and actually realise. We had it at the one in June last year, where a lady came along. I think she was an au pair at the time, had studied like geography, history, everything not technical, basically. I was like, I just want to have a look around. I'm not really sure I can compete. And then eventually she did. I said to her, look, if you change your mind, let us know. And B. Marie, who was one of the main sponsors at the event last year, they had a really cool project brief around helping refugees find employment, obviously with everything going on with Ukraine, and so on. It was very, very popular. And she turned to me, this woman said, oh, I'd actually really like to compete, is it too late? I was like, not at all. And actually one of the Beamery teams took her on. She got to work with some really like senior sort of developers and also a senior designer, and just got to ask loads of questions, which there's not really a lot of opportunity to ask those questions in that sort of informal situation. So definitely come along. It's all about sort of like I hate to say the cliche thing, it's the taking part that counts, but it is definitely a case when it comes to a hackathon. Stop laughing, Sam. I know it's a cliche comment.
I'm not laughing. No, it's I mean, my deck is full of cheesy lines like that, but it's so true. It is.
Yeah. So Faith actually asked, would you recommend Vercel? Is that how I pronounce it properly?
Yeah, Vercel. So Vercel, build Next. If you're going to build with Next, then definitely use Vercel. I have never used Vercel for anything other than Next, but I do host an awful lot on Vercel, and I find their platform to be very good. So I would highly recommend it. My personal website's hosted on it. Hackathon Survival Guide website's hosted on it, and every hackathon project I have done in the last year has been hosted on it. So yeah, there you go.
Anna, regarding the Glassdoor comment I made. So don't get me wrong, Glassdoor still is a good source. It's just don't take it as gospel in terms of every single comment. Sometimes people get fired, for example, and they will just turn nasty. But that's not the company's problem. That's because of the individual wasn't just very good at their job. So take it with, definitely use it as a resource. In terms of other platforms, Otter gets a lot of good references. It's not really like Glassdoor, but I like the way they congregate all of the key information that you need. If I was to go actively look for a role at the moment, I would probably do similar to what I just said. If I found a role I really liked, go through that initial stage, but then also look at reaching out to a few people within the business, and just finding out a bit more sort of on a very sort of naive point of view, just to see how they're getting on, like what is it looking like. If you're looking at sort of like startup world, you could have a look on Crunchbase. That doesn't really give you culture as per se, but it gives you an understanding of their stability. And that's not just startups. There is other companies, obviously all companies are on there, but if you're looking for stability, if that's a key motivator for you, then that could be something that gives you a bit of insight. Sam, what other platforms would you recommend?
My answer is don't use a platform. You will never get a good representation from a platform. Talk to people, and sometimes that can be really hard to do. But one thing that I have done in the past is literally just cold called on LinkedIn, right? Reach out to someone and go, hey, I've noticed that you're working in the area that I want to work in at this company. I've got a job interview coming up. I was wondering if I could talk to you about what it's like to work there. And that has been really insightful for me in the past. And you often get more into your questions. And I also think it's good to have a few questions in your back pocket that kind of throw people as well. And, ask the tough questions, i.e., okay, you've told me what's great about the company. What's the worst thing about working there? That kind of thing is also really important to ask. And, don't feel bad about asking it. I think it's important. And you're probably not, especially if you're early in your career, might not know what your ideal company culture is yourself. And sometimes, you might have to move a few times before you kind of really cement yourself in what it is that you value from your culture at your company.
Yeah, no, definitely 100%. So, Trina, how did you get better at design as a front end dev?
That's an open-ended question. Where do I start? So, as I said, I did 6 months as a UX designer, and I'm so grateful for that. And I wish everybody did that, especially in the front end space where there are not normal, and most companies, there are not normally enough UX designers to front end engineers. And so you end up doing a lot of your own design work, and that can go very poorly sometimes, especially if you don't know what you're doing. I think I just learned by example. I mean, nothing I've done on my website is unique or new. It's just I've tried to find out what really matters. I do a lot of A/B testing and experimentation. What resources can you recommend? Okay, that's probably an easier question. So my daily read, I go to sidebar.io, which I highly recommend. They give you just 5 articles a day. Some of them are a bit more designy and some of them are a bit more software engineering. Really, really good stuff though. I read a lot of documentation. So like I know Next.js's documentation like the back of my hand. There's some great, I use a lot of Dribble as well sometimes. Recently I've been trying to design a dashboard page and I've just gone on Dribble and typed in dashboard and I just scroll through pages and pages until I find something that feels kind of right. And the only way you're going to know whether it's right and really what your customers want is by going and testing it with your customers. And if it's your personal website, there is no harm in reaching out to engineers, mates, whatever it is, and say, hey, I built this. What do you think? What works? What doesn't? And make sure that you're testing across multiple devices because how it looks on your mobile is not necessarily how it will look on everyone's. And, websites need to work all over the place. So, but Trina, if you have more questions like that, I probably have lists somewhere that I can send you. So feel free to drop me a message on LinkedIn and I'll try and collate some stuff for you.
Perfect. Well, thanks, Sam. We will share, if you don't mind, Sam, we obviously can share your deck to those that attended after the call. And yeah, if you've got any further questions, I shared Sam's LinkedIn below, further down the chat. So do connect with me on LinkedIn. You can also connect with myself. Just to see the Q&A box has popped up again. Oh, Trina saying thank you. Thank you, Trina, for your questions as well. So yeah, feel free to connect with us both. Obviously, Sam can give a lot of insights into the more technical aspect of the beautiful world of hackathons and making money out of your skills. Connect with myself for more information regarding show code specific stuff. And yeah, other bits. I normally post about my dog, so it's not as technical, but if you need some lightheartedness, then that's probably what you'll get from myself. It doesn't look like we've got any further questions, so yeah, and thank you so much, Sam. It's been really, really great. Thank you for your time. I know we've gone over slightly longer than you were intending, but it's been really, really great to have you on board. Looking forward to hopefully seeing you at our events later this year, as long as it doesn't clash too much with your hackathon.
No, I think there's a couple in the diary already, so yeah, I'll see you there.
Awesome. Thank you. Right. So we are not on next week. We have got a session being planned for the week after. More information will become available very shortly. I'm just coordinating that with the speaker so we can get it all out and advertised and promoted for you. So do keep an eye out on our socials. Other than that, thank you so much everyone for attending. Happy Valentine's for those who are watching it live. Yes, we did coordinate our outfits, red and pink. No, we didn't. Sam said, please don't say that. I hope you all have a lovely rest of your day. The sun is shining. And Sam, thanks once again. And I'll see you very, very soon.
Thanks, everybody. Bye.
Bye.